So the more I became dedicated, the more time I spent, the more I worked on myself for years and years and years, the more I started to unravel the deeper, the most mysterious, most advanced things. Maybe half of the things in that belief system is wrong. It's some kind of manipulation, because that's what happens, with religions, for example. We create reality. So if you focus on what's wrong all the time, that's not good, because you're gonna be creating more of the same. Alright, this is Mike Sygula from truetheory.com, and welcome to another episode of True Spirituality. So True Spirituality is my series where I talk about metaphysics, esoteric ideas and teachings, mysticism, shamanism, and all sorts of relevant and related topics. So if you are new here, please subscribe if you like these types of topics: philosophy, consciousness, deep spirituality, how reality works on some of the deepest levels. If you like any of these types of fields or subjects, you're gonna enjoy this series. And this is episode 60 something already, so have a look at previous episodes as well. And before we gonna start, if you don't know, or you might know, I do coaching one-on-one. So I help people with personal development, spiritual development, all sorts of relevant things like how to raise your frequency, how to learn how to meditate, how to work on your shadow aspects, how to start manifesting the right kind of things in life by tuning into our higher selves. A lot of things like that, and plus a lot more. So if you need help with anything, check out truetheory.com/coaching. Have a look at different options there. And I do first initial consultation free of charge. This is like a quick consultation, half an hour plus. So nothing to lose. Go to truetheory.com/coaching if you are interested. And now let's talk about the topic. So 8 common mistakes that a lot of people make when they start their spiritual awakening or their spiritual journey. So the first is giving up too early, being impatient, right? This is something I see quite a lot. So let's say I'm gonna recommend a meditation practice to someone who never meditated. And this person's gonna give it a try 3 times, and it's gonna be like, this is not for me. I keep having thoughts in my head, blah, blah. This doesn't work, blah, blah, right? Do you know of anything that would work like that? Any kind of new habit, any kind of new practice? No, of course not. Everything takes time. You wanna learn how to ride a bike? You're not gonna learn how to ride a bike first time you're gonna get on the bike. You want to learn a new language? First time, you're not going to understand a single word, right? So you need a couple of weeks before you're going to start getting familiar with stuff, right? Same thing is with any kind of practice when you are on your journey of spiritual development or spiritual awakening, that you need to have some level of patience. And typically, let's say with meditation, you need to give it a try for at least 3 weeks consecutively to start getting kind of familiar with the practice, at least a little bit. So for example, more than 10 years ago, I was interested in out-of-body experiences, and I read some books about it, and I became very hyped about it. I was reading all these accounts of people doing astral traveling, and I felt like, this is so amazing. I would love to learn it myself. And it took weeks of trying practices, waking up sometimes 4 a.m., things like that, to have my first out-of-body experience. And someone else would give up after maybe 2-3 attempts, right? So any new practice requires time, effort, and training. So mistake number 1 people make, that they just give up too early. Another important thing I want to mention here is that when you are on the path of spiritual awakening, the more important things come with time, right? So, for example, in my case, my first experiences or first interests in these types of things were around 2002, 2003. But the biggest, the craziest things came over the last few years. And the first couple of years was just like trying a little bit of this, learning a little bit about that. So the more I became dedicated, the more time I spent, the more I worked on myself for years and years and years, the more I started to unravel the deeper, the most mysterious, most advanced things. And it is very simple also, like, you gotta become adjusted for the important things, right? So for example, first you meditate before you can have a Kundalini awakening, for example, right? Because first you need to kind of activate certain things. If your lifestyle is partying every weekend and you want to be spiritual, it's going to take you way longer and you're going to be blocking yourself. So obviously, be patient. Things take time. So number 2 is sticking to one school, one teacher, one kind of belief system. No one is always right about everything, right? A lot of people have biases. This is what a lot of religious people do, that they grew up in a religious household and they're just gonna believe in that religion, never gonna try anything else because they're gonna get indoctrinated, whatever. They might do some practice prayer, it's gonna work for them, and they're gonna think, oh, that means this is the truth. Maybe the practice, the mechanism behind this practice was very different, but the result came anyway. Maybe half of the things in that belief system is wrong, is some kind of manipulation, because that's what happens. With religions, for example, a lot of them were kind of twisted, manipulated. People change meanings, you have denominations, you have different interpretations. So it's obvious that it's impossible for every detail to be correct, right? But people make this mistake and they think this works because there was some experience they had or whatever, and they stick to that. And they never open themselves to a sea of other things and countless possibilities that exist. So even if something works, doesn't mean it's 100% true. It almost never is. And you might close yourself to many other things. And this leads us to number 3, which is doing the opposite. So basically changing practices all the time. Changing school, changing teachers, changing belief systems. It's hard to learn anything if you're juggling and you never give time to a practice, right? So number 3 is actually doing the opposite to number 2, trying too many things, not giving enough time to one practice, things like that, right? This is another mistake a lot of people make. Number 4 is experimenting with dangerous practices. And unfortunately, this is something that a lot of people do, and I used to do with myself, because when you are starting, how do you know if something is okay, if something is not dangerous, whatever? And unfortunately, there are many, many, many dangerous rituals, dangerous practices, some kind of manifestation techniques. Like I made this video about 369 method, which is just another trick to get people in karmic contracts. So typically, like, manifestation practices might be dangerous, depends, but any kind of rituals to manifest things, probably not good, especially some kind of selfish things like money or whatever. It's definitely not easy to recognize dangerous practice or dangerous teacher or whatever, shamans, spiritual gurus, whatever. Have a look also at my video about fake spiritual gurus and quacky holistic coaches. But we get what we deserve. That's often is the case. So if you end up in some kind of scenario with dangerous teacher practice, whatever, ask yourself why it happened to you. Because very often what happens is that, like I said, someone might be selfish, greedy, and they really badly want something, and this is what they attracted, like with manifestation, for example. Sometimes people are very impatient, desperate, and they attract some kind of quacky practices and things like that. Let me give you an example of one of these things. So for example, around 14, 15 years ago, I was kind of experimenting with different types of healing modalities. So Qigong, absent healing, some kind of Reiki type practices. And I wasn't really 100% sure what I was doing. I was just experimenting from books or from learning from other people, going to some kind of workshop, whatever. And then the more I got into Qigong and I started studying their philosophy and some of what the teachers were telling me, some of the best guys. One guy said, okay, listen, when you try Reiki or any of these methods, what happens is that we have positive, negative chi, right? And every organ, every part of the body has a balance of positive, negative chi. So people who just send energy by touching chakras or whatever, doing some kind of hands-off healing, they might be sending energy and putting way too much of one or the other into the organ or parts of the body, and they might do it unconsciously and they think they're doing some healing, but actually it could be a little bit dangerous. So this is what, for example, one Qigong guy told me. Another thing about it is some of these people, they're not clean at all energetically, you know, and they work as channels to send energy, and then you get what they have and things like that. So the more I understood from a different perspective of some of these people who probably know more about these things, how they work, you know, like Chinese have thousands of years of experience with these things, the more I started seeing issues with this stuff. So very careful about things like that. For example, there was this guy called John Dee, that was like 16th century or something. He was like an occultist, astrologer, mathematician, etc. And he was experimenting with some practices calling angels, and turned out that they were not angels. So a lot of negative entities, they obviously use trickery to try to hijack rituals, try to hijack prayer, try to hijack practices, things like that. So, and many of practices are actually designed by them as a trick. I've seen it constantly. So be very careful with when you experiment with stuff, because it's very not really difficult to get yourself in trouble. Always think about what's your motivation behind it, what's your intention, because that's often gonna define if the practice is positive or negative. Okay, number 5, comparing our results with others. Everyone is different, right? You have a set of gifts and talents, predispositions, and someone else gonna have completely different set of skills, talents, predispositions, and this person might be getting great results at whatever both of you are doing, but in many other things this person might be way worse than you. If you practice something, you go to some school, workshops, whatever, and you see other people maybe doing better than you, don't worry about it. Don't compare yourself too much. Everyone is different, and just be patient. Don't compare yourself, because you are unique, and I'm sure you have some of your unique gifts and talents that many other people might not have. So even if you are slow with some of the things, that's fine, you know. Sometimes things take a lot of time and effort. So number 6 is focusing on what's wrong, negativity. So this is a very common thing that people who go through some kind of awakening do at the beginning. So, oh, there is this cabal elite and they're evil, blah, blah, blah. And then there is this hate towards them or something like that, or anger, and people are like, you know, worrying about what did they do, how bad things are, why other people don't know about these things. And this is a very common thing. A lot of people never evolve beyond that level. I see it constantly, that people focus on negative. all the time, exposing the elite, whatever, always negative. We create reality. So if you focus on what's wrong all the time, that's not good, because you're gonna be creating more of the same. You're gonna be attracting more of that, right? It's good to understand the problem. Where is the problem? Okay, we know there is this dangerous elite, but now what do we do about it, huh? We might work on ourselves, we might spread the message, whatever. It's very important to not get so affected with negative and contribute to that, because this is what a lot of people tend to do these days. Number 7 is being lonely on your journey. So a lot of people, when they begin their spiritual awakening, they become interested in these types of fields, they completely change their thinking about everything. And what happens is that, let's say you're having some spiritual awakening, suddenly this starts occupying your thinking, your life, you start shifting. You used to like to go to nightclubs, now you see it as some kind of unconscious thing. You used to like to hang out with these types of people, now you don't want to hang out with them. And at the same time, you're probably having some kind of profound experiences. And obviously, if you have profound experiences, you want to share them with others, right? You want to get feedback, you want to be understood, right? This is normal. So if you're going to be lonely on your journey, that's definitely not going to help, right? So you need to start hanging out with the people on the same frequency. It's just enough to set up an intention, right? So, for example, I came back to Poland after being away for whatever, 16 years or something, and I didn't really have a lot of friends because of that, because I was away. So my intention became, okay, I want to meet people like myself, right? Maybe also speaking more than one language, maybe some kind of people similar age, similar interests. And at some point, that's what happened, I met a group of people, everyone interested in similar things, everyone from different country, blah, 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 all living in Poland. So just setting up these intentions, if you're feeling lonely, that you want to meet people who are on the same path so you can support each other. This is important. And finally, number 8 is to not force anything, right? So desperate energy attracts desperate situations, right? You feel like, I need to do ayahuasca, go to that retreat because that's going to change my life, right? And maybe for whatever reason, something happens and doesn't work out, like they canceled the flight or whatever, or something. And you keep trying, keep pushing like crazy. Pay attention to these types of signals, because sometimes, like I said, not everything might be right practice, and sometimes the universe gives us these signs and signals saying you shouldn't do it. But if you are programmed, if you try to force things, the result might be way worse than you expect. So forcing something is never a good thing. Things come in the right moment very often, especially when it gets to kind of spiritual practices and things like that. So don't also rush things, especially when we are talking about spirituality. So I hope this is useful. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Have a look at truetheory.com/coaching if you want to work with me. And follow me on Instagram. It's Mike Sygula on Instagram. And thank you for checking another episode of True Spirituality. Until next time.